Drop the hammer with new Albaz and Ecclesia cards. Ooh, Lord of the Rings clip based. People kept asking me about these all day, so I'm assuming they're pretty strong. Well, let's find out together. Burst Protocol is looking like a pretty interesting set, I would say, so far. So if these are good, then, you know, that'd be even stronger. Fallen of the White Dragon. Level 4 Dark Dragon effect monster. This card is always treated as Fallen of Albaz. Oh, that means you cannot play this and Fallen of Albaz, right? Because always treated means it's even that when you build your deck, I think, right? You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is in your hand, you can send one monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz from your extra deck to the graveyard, special summon this card. Also, you cannot special from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except level 8 fusion and synchros. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can special an Ecclesia monster from your hand, deck, or or graveyard. That's kind of nasty, isn't it? Like, powerful. I mean, okay. This is really good. Special summon from hand by sending one from extra deck to grave is pretty broken. The problem is, I suppose, that you don't necessarily want to play any Ecclesias in branded, right? I don't know if this is the best in branded. It is really good, but like, I guess you could play the Sword Soul Ecclesia. It's not the worst. You can run Dogmatica again. Sure, maybe you play Dogmatica. It's good though. Let's look at the synchro. Ecclesia of the Black Dragon, level 8 light spellcaster. Generic, you can only use the first and second once per turn. During the main phase quick effect, you can banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, special summon a Fallen of Albaz or a level 4 or lower monster that mentions it from your deck or graveyard. If this card's in your grave, you can target a level 8 fusion monster in your grave or banishment and a card on the field, shuffle both and this card into the deck. Special a Fallen of Albaz or a level 4 or lower monster that mentions it from your deck or grave. That's pretty good in Sword Soul, because it can summon the Sword Soul Ecclesia from the deck as a generic level 8 synchro. I mean, this is good in a lot of different decks because you can summon all kinds of main deck monsters with that, right? You can summon, I believe, can you summon the new Springans Tri-Brigade kit with that as well? I'm not sure, but it's good. It gives you a lot of recursion. The problem is, I think like my problem right now is I'm looking at these two cards through the lens of branded, right? And in branded, are you really gonna make room in your extra deck for the synchro? Because you can basically not summon it in any turn that you use branded fusion. You can still send it from the extra deck to the graveyard for some of your effects. However, I think some of the branded effects also say you have to send one from the extra deck to the grave that mention Fallen of Albaz as material, right? It makes the first card a starter. Why? Oh, because you summoned the tuner from the deck. Right. But you can't branded fuse after that. You can't branded fuse after you do that because branded fusion says the entire turn you can only fusion summon, right? So, yes, this card, the Fallen of the White Dragon, is a 1-card level 8 synchro, but then you still can't branded fuse anymore. Okay, so I can already tell you one thing. I think in branded decks, you are never going to play 3 copies of Fallen of the White Dragon. At least the way I'm experiencing branded is like, I feel like the ability to fuse with your opponent's monsters with Fallen of Albaz is very, very essential to the deck's like interruption plans on the opponent's turn, right? You would always play a Fallen of Albaz because you cannot play both 3 copies of this and still multiple copies of Fallen of Albaz because they are just they are considered the same card in deck building, right? So you have to run a split between the two, right? You could play 2 of this and 1 original Fallen of Albaz, because the Fallen of Albaz, you know, the original one was never a great draw. Unless, I mean, in some very specific situations, you know, like going second, fusing away a board, or setting it to fuse into like an Alba Lenitus or something. But for the most part, it wasn't a great draw. Which this is a very elegant solution, technically, at replacing the bad draw Fallen of Albaz by just making another card that's better to draw. but still treated as Fallen of Albaz. That's pretty neat. I'm just not sure how happy Branded is about including an Ecclesia monster in their deck. But there's a lot of potential here, I think. There's a lot of potential here in a bunch of different decks potentially. You know, you could play this in a Dogmatica deck. You could play this in a Sword Soul deck, and there's a lot of potential there. But specifically in Branded, like classic Branded, I feel like they are just more options in a deck that already has infinite one of options. You know what I mean? It locks into 8. Sure, you cannot make a synchro with Longyan after this. But it does say for the rest of the turn, so you could make a level 10 beforehand and then use this. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think level 10 in Sword Soul is maybe a little bit less important now that Baron is banned. I mean, Chengying and Evil Longyan are nice, but realistically, the most important part is getting started. And this is a really good starter / extender for Sword Soul, right? Because it's basically a free level 8 synchro. And you can also summon Ecclesia from deck, which could lead into more material. So it is a really strong card. So you might still take that risk of not being able to make a level 10 in order to have a really good card like this. My takeaway from these two is that they're really good. They are exciting. Based on all the people that came into my chat and asked me to react to them and said that they are completely insane, I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting more when there was like it felt like 100 people coming into my chat and saying like, have you seen the new Branded cards? They're completely insane. And I don't feel like they are. They're good, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say they're not good. But I was expecting them to be crazy custom. And I feel like they're not exactly that. Especially because they don't fit super easily into classic Branded. You can make them work in Branded. I'm not saying they're not going to play them, but it's not like perfect because, like, once again, this card replacing some Albaz is nice. However, it forces you to play Ecclesia monsters, which is normally not something you want to do. At least at the moment, you know, Ecclesia is not being played in typical Branded decks. Being forced to play that, it's just going to be more engine requirements, and the deck already has a lot of engine requirements. But maybe it goes into a different direction now. Maybe you can go and remove some other engine requirements for the Ecclesia and some stuff. It's one thing that bothers me about this is something that I've brought up about Branded like way back in the day. Like this is like a discussion we had like a year or two ago about Branded, maybe 2 years at this point, where I said I find it kind of sad that Branded is so hyper focused on Branded Fusion, because the synchro aspect of Branded is actually super cool in my opinion. And I feel like because Branded Fusion existed, it was always the best way to play Branded was always just fusion centric and never really make the synchros. And if Branded was a deck that allowed you to synchro summon, then these cards would be crazy for it. And these cards are not good enough to cut Branded Fusion from your deck though, because, you know, Branded Fusion is broken. And I don't think people are going to cut Branded Fusion to make some synchros in Branded. I don't know if you want to do both at the same time, because then like you're going to have a lot of conflict, because, you know, you're going to draw cards that want to synchro summon, but if you have access to Branded Fusion, you don't want to do that. So that's why I'm feeling awkward about this. I like that they're leaning into the synchro direction, because I always felt like that was the more fun aspect, to be honest. So I like that. But it's awkward because Branded Fusion exists, and Branded Fusion is basically forcing Branded into a direction that these cards don't perfectly fit into. But they're good cards. They're definitely good cards.